Before we get into today's show, a quick friendly reminder to go ahead and hit that sub button because NFL free agency kicks off tomorrow on Monday, and you won't want to miss a thing for your Denver Broncos. So subscribe and never miss a thing surrounding your favorite team. Welcome in to the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here with you all, getting everyone ready for free agency, which, like I said, starts tomorrow, Monday morning, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. The Broncos have already made some room and some space to sign some big players because they moved on from Ronald Darby, Graham Glasgow, Chase Edmonds. They cleared a bunch of money, so they're going to have some money to spend. But before we get into actually maybe even signing players, I thought we'd have a nice little detour today and talk about trade rumors that are out there because free agency is home to more than just signings. It is also home to a lot of blockbuster trades, like Jalen Ramsey going to the Dolphins today. So with that, let's get into the latest trade rumors on the Broncos. And the number one candidate recently is Courtland Sutton, who he himself chimed in on all of the trade rumors surrounding him. And here's what he tweeted out. I just want to be where I'm wanted and appreciated. So it turns out Courtland Sutton is online, and he did see all the trade buzz surrounding his name. And that's a bit of a bummer, and this is why teams don't really like this stuff getting out, because now the Broncos are going to feel a little bit extra pressure to get a deal done. It'll be a bit awkward to go back and say, hey, Courtland, we were never trying to trade you. Please don't be upset about how we view you in this locker room. To me, it seems like this deal is getting closer and closer to happening. I think Courtland Sutton will get traded at some point this week, right? If I had to flip a coin or gun in my head, whatever, and say, will Sutton get traded? Yeah, I think at this point it seems more likely than unlikely. The question is to where and for how much. Now, Sutton, the last 4 seasons, really the last 2 is what I look at here, is because he signed a contract extension midway through 2021. And since then, he has simply just not lived up to the big extension that he got. There's a lot of good reasons, right? There's some injury kind of hindrance here and there. It's not that he missed a lot of games, but sometimes he played when he was, a bit banged up. Not good quarterback play. That's a big reason for sure. But at the end of the day, second-round pick receiver that gets a big contract extension, they have higher expectations, right? They are given all that money to overcome shortcomings at other positions, right? That's why teams are giving out big contracts to receivers to help compensate for maybe not having stellar QB play, which at the time Denver did not have in 2021, and they still don't have here. So what could a trade look like for Courtland Sutton? The way the contract works out, if he's traded before June 1st, which means you can't split the dead cap over the next 2 seasons if you did it post June 1st, his dead cap hit is $11.4 million. His cap savings for Denver, 6.7. So, good savings right there. Not an outrageous dead cap hit either at 11.5. Base salary, that's what the other team would be taking on unless he renegotiated his contract, is $14 million. So it's a good chunk of change for someone to eat if they're making a trade for him. If I had to think of a Courtland Sutton trade destination and value, I think the Giants make a lot of sense. They were rumored to be very interested in Sutton and Jerry Jeudy back before the NFL trade deadline in October and into November. So maybe the G-men call once again, giving up a 3rd-round pick. I'm being a bit biased there. It could fall to a 4th, some believe, but I still think Courtland Sutton's a good receiver. He just might not be what Denver needs right now. So would you do this Sutton trade? Yes or no? If the Giants called and point blank offered a 3rd-round pick for number 14, are you accepting that? Are you doing that deal? Very curious what you have to say. For me, it sucks moving on from a team captain, a well-liked player, a guy who has been really a very important piece of this team since he got drafted back 2nd round. But at the end of the day, speed is everything now in the NFL, and Courtland Sutton doesn't really have that top-end speed. So when you don't have that, and I wouldn't say he struggles to separate, but he's not maybe the best in the biz at it, and you're getting Tim Patrick back, so they feel like they're not going to be losing a key part of their wide receiver room, they could be exploring options. Oh, and there's this. They only have 5 picks in the upcoming draft. Now, we're going to talk about other trade rumors in just a second, but today's Broncos Breakdown is sponsored by Fume. We all have bad habits, and we certainly know how hard they can be to kick those bad habits. Our sponsor, Fume, is on a mission to accelerate humanity's breakup from the bad habits that consume far too many of us. Fume is a natural diffusive device that uses plants and behavioral science to help you trade out your negative habit for a positive one. I personally didn't expect a whole lot out of Fume when we got it here at Chat Sports, but everyone says that the minty sensation is super powerful. Now, the Journey Pack comes with 3 awesome flavors: white cranberry, maple pepper, and crisp mint. And I'm holding the product here right now in my hand so you can see it's light, it's not too big, it's very mobile. It's really cool if you ask me. Now, Fume is not a vape. It's a non-electronic device that is designed to transform your negative habits. The easiest way to stop a bad habit is to switch to a positive one, and Fume is designed perfectly to do just that. Head to tryfume.com/chatsports and use code chatsports to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfum.com/chatsports and use code chatsports to save an additional 10% off on your order today. Let's move on to our second trade rumor now, and that is a doozy. It's Patrick Surtain. I have avoided even the idea of discussing this on the show for months now, but it kind of got to a point yesterday where I figured, let's bring it on and let's sit down and talk about this. So it started with a nice back and forth from 2 Broncos beat reporters over at Denver Sports. Andrew Mason had a quote tweet from Darren McKee, who was like, the Broncos are trading their best player, and Mace said, they're not trading Surtain, making a little joke of, no, they're not trading their best player away. Patrick Surtain is their best player. Okay, and then we got this response from Darren McKee, who quote tweeted that and said, but should they? I make a case for it in a soon-to-be-released article as I looked at the path of Jalen Ramsey. Some extremely interesting things to consider. Would you trade Surtain now for a better chance at Caleb Williams or Drake May? So I can sort of follow the logic of get some more picks for next year so you can get a rookie quarterback like one of these 2 what appears to be studs. And, if you're not a believer in Russell Wilson, you're quickly moving on from it. Well, Mays had, I thought, a very articulate response. And he said, no, and I'll tell you why. You would have to make a trade with a team without knowing what their draft pick will be. Say you make the trade with Houston. The Texans have the Colts and rebuilding Titans in their division, so they could easily meander into an 8-9 finish and pick 14. Well, that makes some sense now, right? Why would you trade with the Texans and then, boom, what you thought would be a really good first-round pick, because not all first-round picks are created equal, right? Top 10 is viewed entirely different by GMs than bottom 10 of the first round. Well, McKee had a response, and he said, I addressed that in my upcoming article. It's very, very risky. Surtain can't get higher value than 3 years left on his deal in perfect health. Come on, Mace, you think the Broncos are a playoff team this year and they are in a championship window? Really? I get the idea of if you're not in a championship window, you might as well start unloading your biggest assets and get some draft picks so that when you are ready to be in a championship window, you've got young players, but most importantly, a good quarterback, which if you don't believe in Russell Wilson, then you might as well be at ground zero. Now, he, in his article, which I'm not going to go into because it's very lengthy, honestly, but you're welcome to read it yourself, he frequently referenced the Jalen Ramsey trade. I'm talking about Darren McKee here. Now, this is not the Jalen Ramsey trade that just went down with the Dolphins. No, this is back when he went from Jacksonville to LA. And back then, the Rams shipped off 2 first-round picks and a 4th-round pick. So a very good haul for a really, really good cornerback. Now, I do think there's more to it than, well, it worked out well for the Jags, right? They got some first-round picks. They reset. They were really bad, and that helped him get Trevor Lawrence. And now they're winning playoff games. So shouldn't Denver follow the same recipe? No, I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's that, apples to apples. One, Jalen Ramsey was very disgruntled in Jacksonville. He more or less wanted out from the Jags. So Surtain has shown us no reason to believe he wants to be out of the Broncos. Okay, so that's step number 1. Step number 2 is, my issue number 2 is, look at the picks they got for Jalen Ramsey. Didn't really work out. Like Travis Etienne, good running back. I don't know if you should be picking running backs in the first round, but aside from that, I don't think that they got better as a team by moving on from Jalen Ramsey. I think they had their hands tied, and they got a good deal with it, and maybe other teams would have picked better players, but at the end of the day, that kind of gets to my point here. Draft picks are just lottery tickets, right? Might not be the same odds as the Mega Millions, but the draft is a crapshoot. We love this idea of, like, if you get first-round picks, that's guaranteed starters for, like, 10 years right there. No, it's not. The draft is more or less a crapshoot. First round, 32 picks. I would say half of the first-round picks on a given year get a second contract with their team. It's just the way it works. So if you have already hit on one lottery ticket, which you did with Patrick Surtain, why would you be moving on for that to get another one, which you might not hit on, right? If the idea is, well, let's stockpile more picks so we can trade down to number 1 to get Drake May or Caleb Williams, I can follow that logic, but at the end of the day, I just think that's not worth it. It's too risky, and it's not worth the potential failure of you don't move down to number 1, you moved on from PS2, and you got some picks for player, and you turn those picks into players that just didn't work out for your team. So be the GM for me. Would you trade Patrick Surtain? Type T for trade or P for pass. I'm passing altogether, but let me know what you're thinking down below. Our third and final trade rumor on the show is about Jerry Jeudy. Could he be a trade piece? Could he be on the block for the Broncos? Well, after Courtland Sutton tweeted out his disgruntledness about wanting to be wanted, Diana Rossini quote tweeted that and said, multiple teams have called the Denver Broncos to inquire about both Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. I was told Denver is not shopping them, but reminded every GM takes the call. Just so we know, every single team is not shopping players for the most part until they're traded, right? That's always the way. I don't think that is like the gospel and it's, put it in stone. It's a closed book. They're not shopping them, so they're not getting traded. No, teams love to do some smoke screens. That's the nature of the business. I get rebuilding requires trading away assets to get draft picks and get younger and get cheaper and hope those picks work out. That's how rebuilding works. But also, I think they should be rebuilding around certain players like Jerry Jeudy, like Pat Surtain. That's why I'm open to the idea of trading away Courtland Sutton. It's not even so much because Courtland Sutton has struggled since he got that big extension, 2 touchdowns in 22 games since he signed it, but it's because that's not the direction at that position, right? The way Jerry Jeudy played last season, especially down the stretch, a hat trick against the Chiefs, that was the type of stuff we were looking for to go, okay, there's wide receiver 1, right? There's the first round pick. That's the guy we can build around and have a part of this offense for the next decade here. When it comes to trade value for these 3 players we discussed on the show, I think Courtland Sutton can get you a 3rd or a 4th rounder. Might be a bit optimistic right there, but I do think if Chase Claypool can go for a 2nd, Sutton can go for a 3rd or a 4th. I think Surtain, like Jalen Ramsey, the conversation starts at 2 first-round picks minimum. And then it goes from there. Then you start discussing that plus a player, that plus a 3rd-round pick, whatever it may be, but the floor is 2 firsts, and then we'll pick up the phone, but I probably still wouldn't pick up the phone for Patrick Surtain getting traded. Finally, I think Jerry Jeudy goes for a first-round pick and a day 3 pick. Before the trade deadline, it was rumored the Packers were really close to getting Jeudy, and they offered a 2nd, and Denver wanted 2nd and a little bit more. Green Bay didn't give a little bit more. Since then, I think his trade value has only gone up, so a 2nd probably turns into a 1st, and now they want a 1st, maybe like a 4th. I don't think the bottom 2 players get dealt. I think Sutton is more likely to get traded than not. Now, that's going to do it for us on today's show. NFL free agency kicks off tomorrow. So if you're excited, like today's video, make sure to subscribe, all that YouTube cliche stuff. But also, I'll be seeing everyone bright and early tomorrow morning. We're getting in early to get the latest news and rumors on your Broncos before free agency kicks off at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. So we'll see you then.